Roxana, the founder of Conscious.Enterprises, and this conversation is with Luke Storey of the Life Stylist podcast. If you don't already listen to the Life Stylist podcast, you probably will after this. Luke is such an interesting guy. Luke Storey is probably one of the most extreme and obsessive, yet also astoundingly knowledgeable and intuitive and charismatic people out there, especially in the biohacking world. Above all, his entrepreneurial drive has been apparent along his tumultuous journey to where he is today. From a sordid past of substance abuse and drug dealing, which he speaks about with great refreshing humor and honesty, to complete sobriety and building 2 successful businesses that he runs today. Luke is transforming his propensity for addictive behaviors into a platform to expose the world to the most innovative, sometimes wacky, yet effective practices for achieving the ultimate lifestyle by optimizing health, wellness, and consciousness. He's a former fashion stylist in Hollywood and founded the first ever School of Style. And he still continues to co-manage that as he pursues his true passion of biohacking with the Life Stylist. There's so much more ahead of Luke. It's apparent from his drive and how big his brand is getting. So please enjoy this conversation. You'll laugh, you'll cry. He spans across so many different categories. We talk about how he used to work for Aerosmith and how they inspired him to stay sober. He discloses his 3-phase business model for success, his fast track to monetization, and also his most valuable biohacks. So please enjoy. Please follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we're on LinkedIn. Please subscribe and check out our website, www.Conscious.Enterprises. Enjoy. Cool. Do you have any questions for me before we start?
No, I love being unprepared when I'm interviewed.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, you're pretty good.
Even people, like, if I go to a talk, they send me, like, the summary of this and that. I literally never even open the emails. I'm just...
Good.
We'll have a much better result if I just am intuitively responsive. So, yeah, I'm all yours.
I think so, too. Okay. So, Luke Storey, thank you so much for being part of Conscious Enterprises. I've been listening to your podcast, I think, almost maybe since the beginning, and it's been really incredible to watch you flourish and gain. You're at, what, 1 million downloads or 1 million subscribers now?
Yeah.
And, yeah, you have a way with showing, biohacking and wellness to the world that makes it, approachable and easy to understand, which I love. So, the point of Conscious Enterprises is to talk about you as a business person, as an entrepreneur. I want to hear about all the things that you are working on. It sounds like you're kind of juggling a lot at the moment. Tell me about the Life Stylist podcast first.
God, yeah, there is a lot going on when you put it like that. I'm like, oh my God, where do I start? I tend to get myself in, I don't want to say over my head because everything gets done, but I do things so intensely that I create a lot of work out of projects that could be somewhat simple. For example, the recording that I did today with Light Watkins, my guest, I was running a little bit behind, and I could have just set up 2 microphones and just had a conversation and called it a day. But I'm like, if he's going to be here, I'm going to make a YouTube video with my video camera. I'm going to post to my Facebook group on my iPad. Then I have a spare iPhone that I use for Instagram Live, like I'm doing right now on this one. And so I kind of just maximize everything, which is what you're seeing. So yeah, there's a lot of productivity going on. But the Life Stylist podcast, I launched the first one June 6, 2016. So I'm creeping up in a few months here on my 2-year mark. And the idea with the podcast was to share with the world all of the things, and there are many of the things that I've learned about health and wellness on the physical plane, as well as spiritual and metaphysical things that I've been exploring and practicing for the past 21 years. So there are all these people that I've read books by and listened to on other podcasts and listened to on audio programs and watched their videos. And I know that a lot of people are largely unaware of some of these people because many of them are on the obscure side. And if you're not really into that chosen topic, be it meditation or biohacking or whatever, you'd likely never come across their work, especially because my background is in the fashion and entertainment industry. So a lot of my sort of scene and following on social media and stuff like that were largely unaware of some of the things that I was into on the side. Right. So it was a big sort of pivot that I did at 45 years old and just decided to kind of reinvent myself. I mean, even though I was into all of this stuff privately, I never tried to make a business out of it or anything like that. So the podcast was my first foray into seeing how the public would respond to my point of view on building the ultimate lifestyle and just sharing the things that I've discovered that have really helped me over the years.
It seems like they're soaking it up, so that's good.
You know what? It's really good timing. You know, it's sort of funny when I started. You know, and we can talk about the fashion school that I own too, because that's another huge part of my life. But when I started the fashion school, no one really knew what a fashion stylist was, and I'd been doing that professionally for 10 years at that point. And when I started the school, I started to see that there was this trend where more and more people wanted to do that as a career, but there was nowhere to go to really learn how to do it. No one in the industry would let you in if you were an outsider. It was very insulated. And I didn't know it at the time, but I did my first class on November 8th, 2008, and November 9th, 2008 was the launch of a little show called the Rachel Zoe Project.
Oh.
And so, yeah, it was crazy, right? I didn't know that until years later. I started the school and I was like, wow, all of a sudden everyone wants to do what I do for a living.
Yeah.
And it's worked much the same way when I made the decision that I wanted to teach people about all the things that I've learned through my podcast. That I realized, oh my God, like everyone in the world, and especially a lot of younger people, I'm 47 now, so there are people that I'm like, wow, they're kids that are in their late teens or early 20s or whatever, and they're super into herbalism and Ayurveda and acupuncture and float tanks and biohacking and meditation and ayahuasca and like all of this stuff. I mean, it's like taking care of yourself now is trendy, which is weird and great at the same time.
Yeah,
but I feel like, oh my God, I had really good timing because I'm an OG with so much of this stuff, being into it for so many years. I just take it for granted, like, duh, everyone knows the stuff I know, but I'm realizing I actually have a pretty rich body of knowledge and experience that also happens to be really popular at this moment. So it's been another fortuitous kind of timing thing for me to pursue this as a business rather than just being and improve my own life and the lives of my close friends and family.
Awesome. Yeah, so tell me about how you first, got started with your first business, School of Style, because I know you had a little bit of, I'll let you tell the story about how it all kind of came to be.
Sure. Yeah, it's, you know what, it's cool, man. School of Style is like my firstborn baby, you know, and I feel so fortunate for the timing and fortunate that a year into it, I got a business partner, my partner Lauren Messiah, who's just been hugely instrumental in growing the business and sort of filled in the gaps for the things that I was lacking as a business owner and entrepreneur. But yeah, I just, you know, the bottom line is I'm not a great employee. It's hard for me to be motivated to help someone else build their vision, you know, and so I was an assistant fashion stylist for a few years, and I was pursuing music, so I wasn't really motivated to become a big stylist myself. I watched many of my peers like Monica Rose and people like that are now, you know, literally the biggest stylists in the world, and I was like, good for them. I'm not trying to be that stressed out, so I was just playing music. I'd go on tour, and then I'd work as an assistant stylist. But because it wasn't my dream, I enjoyed that role because I could still go pursue my dream and be creative and make music and do my meditation retreats and all the stuff I was doing.
Right. Would you say at that point, that was when you were also dealing with a lot of substance abuse problems and things like that, right?
That was before. That's a little earlier in the journey. I got sober when I was 26 years old in 1990. Actually, it was just 21 years on February 15th. That's the anniversary of like the first day I woke up and didn't put anything in my veins other than non-mind altering herbs.
Yeah.
I've still put a lot of those in there. Sometimes intravenously, actually, strangely enough. But no, I had gotten past all that. Well, I don't say past, but I was working on myself, and that's really how I became a stylist in the first place, because I got sober and I had dropped out of high school, and the only jobs I ever had were being a waiter, at which I became totally unemployable at a certain point because I just literally couldn't show up anywhere and not be too wasted to perform even that sometimes, menial task. And then I was a drug dealer. I drove prostitutes around and collected their money on calls. I did really weird stuff, most of it illegal. And so I guess I was, actually, it's funny I say School of Style is my first entrepreneurial venture, but actually dealing drugs was my first one. It's kind of funny, but I was really good at marketing. I sold weed and mushrooms and stuff. And I had really good strategies that I think looking back, I'm like, I was actually pretty smart, because what I would do is I would have, I wouldn't just sell one grade of weed. I would have 5 or 6 different levels at all times. So I'd have really cheap, inexpensive, we used to call it like gas tank weed from Mexico. Literally, sometimes it smelled like gas because it was smuggled in a gas tank. Super toxic, moldy, really crappy weed. And then I'd have the most high-end chronic, like legit weed. And then I'd have a few middle ranges. And so I was a really popular dealer in Hollywood. I sold to a lot of the big, famous musicians in the neighborhood that will remain unnamed for their own anonymity and protection. But I was really good at it, and I was really good at marketing. I would go to parties, and I would post up in the middle of the party, and I would just start blazing huge joints, and I'd get a huge crowd around me, and then I'd start passing out my little cards or whatever, and my phone would be blowing up. So that was my first foray, but I digress. I did eventually clean up my act, but how I got into being a stylist was I had a friend that I'd met in the early 90s when I was doing a little modeling and stuff, and her name was Kikai Mingus, and she's still around but is no longer a stylist. But she was a stylist, and I was homeless when I got sober because that's how I rolled, and I didn't have anywhere to stay, and so she offered me a house-sitting gig to take care of her dog while she went on tour for 2 or 3 months with Tina Turner. And so I took over her really beautiful apartment in Koreatown here in LA, and it was the nicest apartment I think I'd ever been in, let alone slept in. It was like Beverly Hillbillies, you know what I mean?
Oh my God, yeah.
I was like, oh my God, it's like a 2-bedroom just for her, It was I was so ghetto at the time. But as fate would have it, I was staying there in her place and almost killed her dog. And we could go on for an hour just with all the mishaps of early sobriety, and I was so damaged and deranged from just harming myself for so long that I was barely functional. But lucky for me, she didn't know anyone else in LA because she just moved here from New York. So she came back in town. I was still staying there. I got a little apartment, and she's like, oh, guess what? I got booked as Aerosmith stylist, and she landed that client. So here I am, 2 or 3 months sober. I can barely put a sentence together. I'm just totally brain dead, totally incapable of taking care of myself as an adult because I never had really. And she, God bless her, was desperate enough to hire me to be her assistant. And so I jumped right in and was I was a musician, so I was playing in bands, and then my day job was working for Aerosmith. It was just the weirdest life ever. But what was really cool, and one of those, again, another beautiful gift from the universe, is they happened to be sober at the time, and so I would, take
Aerosmith
a minute.
Sober.
Yeah, which they were some of my childhood heroes. I grew up in the 70s, so it was Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC. Those were the bands. That was the shit.
What a rarity to fall upon a sober rock and roll band.
Isn't that crazy? And it actually really helped me and inspired me because I felt like such a square and a nerd for quitting drugs, even though it was so ludicrous because I was actually such a loser because I did drugs. But I felt like that was part of my identity, and it was I'm a musician, I'm Hollywood, I'm cool, I live in the underground. I was really into the dark side, and the crime and bad neighborhoods and just danger and weird vibes and weird toxic stuff. And so to see people that were successful and wealthy and living the dream, they were huge at that time. This is the late 90s, Okay. They were having a comeback. And never forget Kika. It was really sweet of her. one day I went over to the Sunset Marquee, which is where we would like post up, and that's where the band stayed, and we had a big suite to keep all the wardrobe. And it was my job to kind of hang around there, and I even slept there sometimes because I was homeless. I'd like crash out in their room and order filet mignon room service. I mean, it was like, you can't understand how dope that was for me coming from where I came from, you know?
Right.
But anyway, one day she's like, hey, we're over here. It's kind of a down day. I'm just hanging out with Steven in his bungalow. If you want to come hang out and like really meet him. Because I've been working with them, but I was like, here's your pants, sir. You know, like I never interfaced with them and got to know them or anything. And it was one of the most cool moments in my life. You know, I was like, yeah, I'll be right there. And I went over and just hung out with him for a few hours and talked about how to be sober and play in a band, and that it's actually really cool to be sober. You don't have to be embarrassed, he would tell me, and I didn't have to be ashamed, and I could still play in bands and like be rock and roll and be cool and have tattoos, but just not be a junkie. And it was revelatory to me at the time, and it was really inspiring. If and when I run into Steven, I can't wait to share that with him, that he really helped me, because I was like, wow, I could go play in a band and still be kind of normal, but just not have to behave in those ways that I was, and I didn't have to live in the darkness in order to be cool or to be rock and roll. So that's how I got into styling, and then I worked for her and a number of other stylists for years, until eventually it became ridiculous that I wasn't what you call a key stylist. At a certain point, my friends and everyone in the industry is like, why are you still assisting? And it was partially because I was pursuing music, but it was also just low self-worth and low motivation. But eventually I broke out of that and became my own man, so to speak, and started picking up my own clients, and was working with Kanye West and the Foo Fighters and No Doubt and all these big bands and stuff like that. Yeah, through the mid 2000s to the late 2000s, I guess that would have been. And anyways, 10 years into my career, it was the digital music kind of crashed, and so a lot of the budgets on the types of jobs that I was working on started to just get killed because record sales died. Like that was like Napster and all that stuff.
Right.
When music went digital, the music industry just tanked.
Right.
And so I was like, shit, they're not giving me enough money on my job, these music videos and stuff, to hire assistants. So I started hiring interns that I didn't have to pay.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is dope for them. I bring them on some huge music video. They get to learn and get that experience. And then I get help that the label won't pay for, you know? And so I was like, God, so many kids like apply to these job postings I would put on Craigslist. I'd literally have to run home from work and like shut the ad down. Yeah. Because my email would be like it'd break the internet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like so many people. And I thought, there's this demand there. There's no one to teach them. None of the fashion schools taught styling. No other stylists are ever going to invite this very competitive industry. So I thought, you know what? I had been going to like real estate seminars and boot camps and things like that.
Okay.
And as someone who really didn't do well in school, I just hated it. It's not like the way schools are set up. Our education system is not in alignment with the way my brain works.
Right.
But I really like seminars. I like deep dives, like going in for a weekend and doing 12 hours a day and just go hardcore and just walking away with the information and the ability to apply it. So I thought, I could do my own boot camps or my own seminars where I give people my 10 years worth of experience in a really short period of time, and then actually connect them with jobs instead of just sending them out on their own. And so I started, I had my first class. I think there was like 12 people in there, and I had a janky little website. It looked like a freaking Nigerian money laundering scheme. I mean, it was totally not legit at all.
What year was this?
What's that?
What year was this?
This would have been 2008.
2008, okay.
Yeah. So it was about 10 years or so into my career. So we're in our 10th year now. Yeah, wow. And I can tell you more about how that's evolved because it's pretty amazing what we've been able to accomplish. I'm very grateful for it. But anyway, I launched the class and I was like, oh my God, this is working. And so I started adding more dates, and then I moved from, the first house. I borrowed like a cool house in the Hollywood Hills that a friend of mine owned as a vacation rental, and so he let me borrow it, and I did a couple classes there. Then I moved into like a real estate office in Culver City, which was super ratchet. And then eventually, because I was signed with the agency at Smashbox Studios, I started renting space from them so I could bring the students into these just super high-end, legit photo studios, and there's celebrities running around doing photo shoots, and it was a really cool experience for the students. And Schoolofstyle.com just started really blowing up. And it was just largely due to timing and scarcity of that information. And I was able to not only teach students how to get into the industry and really behind the curtain, the behind the scenes of how it really works, but then I would contact all of my really famous stylist friends and get them to hire our students.
Oh,
and
wow.
that was the real
kicker,
thing that
yeah.
that was the power move, because I could then use that in my marketing. Like, hey, this girl Jane Smith took my class, and I just called Monica Rose and was like, hey, you should hire this girl to work with you and the Kardashians. And now my student rolls in from North Dakota at 20 years old, doesn't even know anything about fashion, and the next week she's on a Beyonce video or working with Kim Kardashian or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally like rags to riches stories, just day in, day out. We can't even keep track of the success stories of our students because there's so many of them.
How many students do you have now?
Oh, we've trained over 3,000 students in our live classes.
Wow, that's amazing.
So at one point we were doing 8 different U.S. cities. We kind of go on tour,
Yeah.
And then we realized this sucks. This is like, I miss home.
Yeah.
So then we just narrowed it down to L.A. and New York, and we did that for about 8 years or so. And then on the 1st of this year, 2018, we made the decision to move the business into a 100% online model. And so now all of our students learn through like a private Facebook group and then an interface where there's different video modules and downloadable PDFs and things like that.
Cool.
And so we have one class that we just launched. It was actually January was our best month in 10 years.
Wow.
100% online. Yeah, it was a huge home run for us. And that was our personal stylist course, where people learn how to work with executives and people in the private sector, rather than the fashion styling where you dress models and celebrities and things like that. So yeah, so it's my partner Lauren and I are both like kicking ourselves like, God, why didn't we do this 5 years ago? But it happened when it happened. But she was pushing to kill the live classes for a few years, and I was like, no, we won't. Yeah, that's our classes were $5,000 for a 9-day course, so it's like, you see those signups coming in your email, ding, ding, ding. You're like, oh, sick. We just made $25,000. It's hard to just go, let's shut that faucet off,
right,
and hope that this other faucet that we're turning works. It's kind of like, shit. What if people don't want to learn online? So, thankfully, more students want to learn online, and we were able to, of course, lower the price substantially, and also increase our net profits exponentially, because it's like a weird conundrum with School of Style as a business owner is, the demographic that we're selling our classes to doesn't have any money.
Right.
And so even $5,000 to them is a lot of money to come take a course for 9 days. But we're holding our classes at Pier 59 Studios in New York City, Smashbox Milk Studios in LA. I mean, it's like a super high-end luxury experience that we're giving them. So really our class should have been probably $25,000 per student, honestly. Like that would have been the business model, the right margins. So it was profitable and we did good with gross sales, but our net was never what we wanted it to be, just because our overhead was so high. And so now what we're seeing is like, oh, it's all those first class flights to New York and staying like in really nice hotels when we get to New York and renting out these beautiful studios. And it's School of Style. It's got to be luxurious and high end. We're not going to go to like the freaking Newark, New Jersey airport Marriott or some shit. It's like, no, we're going to Manhattan, doing it at the dopest studio in the city, because we want students to have that visceral experience of really being there in the middle of it. But it's not really scalable and profitable. So that's where we are now with School of Style, and it's
why
really
do
exciting.
You think School of Style was so successful? Was it, the partnership? Was it that you just like loved styling people? Like, what do you think that made it so special? Because there's so many entrepreneurs that, jump into whatever careers they have at hand, and, they don't really make it like that,
Well, I'm a really dedicated person when I put my mind to something. Once I decide I'm going to do something, there's not a lot that can get in my way. So that's part of it. Another thing was just timing. And I think my initial vision of just realizing that there was this huge demand in the industry and that none of the fashion schools were serving that demand at all, and still to this day really aren't.
Right.
So I even went and worked at FITM for a while as an instructor here, which is a big fashion school. It's kind of like the LA equivalent of FIT or Parsons or something like that, right?
Okay.
And that was years into School of Style. I got offered the job, and I thought, yeah, it'd be just as a personal challenge of someone that dropped out of high school, didn't go to college. I'm going to go be an instructor or professor at a fashion school, the biggest fashion school really on the West Coast. I was like, that's a cool just thing to explore. So I went and did that and realized just the model of teaching of traditional fashion schools is antiquated and ineffective.
Interesting.
And yeah, it's just the way that they teach is not, it's not real. It's theoretical. It's not based in like the way things currently are in the industry. So
I think
because
a lot of schools like that in general. Probably.
Yeah, it's like you have the instructors or people that like way back when were doing the thing that they're teaching, and then they retired from that, be they an author or whatever. Right. Now they teach English or something, right? Well, I was like going on styling jobs for the first, I don't know, 8 years or something of School of Style. I was an active stylist, so I could give very current information. And then also another thing that contributed to our success was, as I mentioned earlier, the relationships that I had within the industry from just being in there and grinding and meeting so many people, that I was able to be the bridge between our students and the industry in a way that no fashion school would be able to do, because they're a big corporate entity and I'm just this guy, Luke, like, oh, everyone loves Luke. Yeah, Luke Storey, he's cool. Yeah, he's going to send me a bunch of interns. They're stoked. The students really happy. The stylists and the styling agencies really responded well to what I was doing, because I was then sending them assistants and interns that had the right kind of training. Like I only train the things that they really need to know when they're starting out.
Yeah. So
you take like a really green intern and throw them at a stylist like B. Ockerland or Lori Goldstein or whomever, just badasses that are like 20, 30-year veterans, and a new kid comes into their set who's, got no experience, but they know all of this inside information, like how to do sample requests and international shipping and customs forms and nuanced skills that you only learn if you're doing the job. And so I identified what those more cloaked and nuanced skills were and emphasized teaching those to make our students more marketable to, the veterans in the industry. So that was part of it. And then thirdly and lastly, I would say that I was just really fortunate also to get a great business partner. A year into starting the school, it was kind of just a side thing for me. I was still doing styling. I thought, cool, I'll make a couple extra grand here and there and whatever. I just get in and mentor these kids, and it was fun, and I enjoyed passing knowledge along. But when my partner Lauren came to take the class as a student, she emailed me I think it was a Saturday and Sunday class, and she emailed me Sunday night, hey, you probably don't remember me, but I was in your class this weekend. I think you have I don't love it, and you have no social media presence, and I would really love to intern for you and help you. And I was like, word, shit. She kind of convinced me that I needed her help. So I hired her first as an intern, working on styling jobs and with the school, and then
That's very
cool. And then started paying her as an employee of the school, and then eventually, she just brought so much value that it became clear that she was more than an employee, and then became my business partner, and also eventually my girlfriend. We were in a relationship for 5 years. So, I think the value of just getting really lucky and getting someone who is so smart and talented and such a hard worker, A, and B, someone that was so, our skill set and our talents are so opposite that we complete each other in a powerful way in terms of a business. That said, when you're also that different from someone, you really, it's very difficult. And there's been, there's been a lot of close calls where we're like, wow, this is not going to work because we are so different. She's a morning person. I'm a night person. I make up life literally second by second as I go. I don't know what the hell I'm doing half the time, as you've seen, trying to schedule with me. Like I'm a basket case. Lauren plans out her next year, every hour of every day. So we had to really learn communication and learn each other's personality types and take a lot of personality tests and things like that to learn how to integrate together and be supportive of one another and use our strengths and not drive each other crazy for the areas or personality traits in which one of us might be deficient. You know what I mean?
Cool.
So I think that was the third piece, is having a really badass, smart woman as a partner who could really take the vision to a place in many cases that I didn't really see it going. Yeah. For example, after she was there maybe a year, I was like, yeah, you know what? Someday I'll probably do a class in New York. She's like, let's just book the space and do it. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, just get plane tickets. Fuck it, you know? I was like, okay. We booked the Ace Hotel in Midtown, and we just started. Yeah, we used their conference room downstairs. It's like they use it as a nightclub. I think it's called Liberty Hall.
Yeah, I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, and so we were just like, oh, you can just do that. All right. But I might not have done that had she not, kind of pushed me and be like, no, let's go for it. And
she
so
removed the restrictions from your own mindset, it sounds like.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Totally.
So I want to fast forward to the Life Stylist. Tell me about how did you, pursue this? How did it get started? Are you profitable yet? Are you going to be profitable one day?
Sure. Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm so grateful and fortunate that I had School of Style to support me through the transition, and I still, still work at School of Style, although I'm now going to relinquish my CEO title and status at the company, and Lauren is going to take over as CEO shortly, just because it's more in alignment with her brand, and she's still into fashion and I'm not. I've totally dipped out of the industry and stuff. So I was really fortunate when I wanted to do my podcast because I didn't have like a corporate job that I still had to have. I had flexibility with my schedule, and as long as I just showed up at School of Style and did what was required, I had enough income from the school to pay all of my living expenses and also to fund some of the initial expenses of the podcast when it was in the red, as it is for a while when you start a new thing like that. So I'm really fortunate to have that backup. I see a lot of our students at School of Style or people that want to become, an influencer or personality or content producer, etc., and they're in a career that they don't like, that's not fulfilling, or that is indeed stressing them out or just driving them crazy, and they can't escape because they need that paycheck, and there's this perpetual sort of hamster wheel that they get stuck on. And luckily for me, that wasn't the case. I was able to somehow squeeze out the time and energy from the school to go focus on my podcast. And thankfully, I had a business partner that, although she's gotten really annoyed with me because I haven't been present a lot, and we had to work that out too,
I'm sure.
and make some arrangements that made that more fair. But she was supportive of me because she knows this is my dream, and I love talking about spirituality and meditation and health. And I mean, this is like my heart, whereas fashion is cool and I appreciate it as an art form, but I don't wake up in the morning and look at Vogue.com. Like I wake up in the morning and read a meditation book and do, it's like I'm just not into it. So the Life Stylist podcast, in terms of a business model, I somehow managed, I think I've taken enough online courses and I've worked with a couple of business coaches. I got the concept that I would have to have this business go in different phases, And so it was never my intention to make the podcast in and of itself like the business or the brand. The business is me, my ass, this mug, Luke's story, whatever that ends up evolving into. I'm still not even sure what I am or how to build myself because I'm into so many different things in personal development. But the first phase was, this was my plan. And for anyone listening that's interested in, producing content and eventually monetizing, I think this is a good way to go. Is you have to really, I got whiteboards out. I made 5 whiteboards, put them on the wall, and I phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I bulleted out what income streams or what avenues of content I was going to put out in each of those phases. And, it changes, of course, and it evolves. But I did know that in the very beginning, the first phase was, step 1, record a bunch of podcasts. I think I got like 20 episodes recorded. And then I had a strategy that I worked out with my business coach at the time, who's Dave Asprey, the founder and CEO of Bulletproof Coffee. And so he had a successful podcast. I was working with him, doing executive coaching. And he's like, yeah, if you've got a bunch recorded, put out 10 in a row for 10 days. And that way it gives you leverage with iTunes. You get a lot of downloads really fast. And then you could go really quickly and tell like a big name guest like, oh yeah, I've already got 10 shows out, even though those 10 shows came out in 10 days. So I kind of gamed the system a little bit and got a little push and a little momentum.
Yeah.
And once I pulled the trigger and did that, the first phase was just consistently, and anyone that does content will tell you consistency is king, and I knew that. And so I just made a commitment every Tuesday. I don't care if it's the freaking zombie apocalypse. I'm putting out a show every Tuesday, no matter what. I don't care. Literally, if I'm like on my deathbed, I will sit there and do an iPhone voice memo. Okay, today's podcast is, and click submit to iTunes. Like, I'm not missing it. So I got the consistency, but there was no chance of monetization because I had no credibility and no audience. So I knew I've got to put out really high quality content with some degree of consistency and regularity in order to build a loyal enough following where I've got enough downloads to then facilitate bringing on advertisers on the show that pay. So how I transitioned from spending $2,500 to $3,000 a month out of pocket to produce my podcast, which is how much it costs to do my show, and the things that support it. It's really expensive because I do it right. You can do it really cheap or for free.
It shows.
You're gonna have a crappy podcast, and I'm just too competitive. I'm like, I want to sound like, I want to be up there with Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan and Rich Roll and Dave. Like, I want to have one of the biggest podcasts in the world, so it needs to sound like that. And in fact, I got to say, my sound, even when I started, was better than some other big shows. I was like, all right, because I was a musician, so I understand microphones and all that stuff. So thank God I knew how to do that. So anyway, getting the content out. And then another thing I did strategy-wise that I think was useful was I started running ads on my show from the beginning.
I noticed that.
Yeah, even though they weren't paying. So what I was doing is I was giving brands free ads so that
I was wondering about that.
Well,
Did you tell them first?
No, I don't ask for permission. I ask for forgiveness.
It's a good way. It's free for them. I can't imagine they're mad. Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. No, the first thing I did is, I need to get all these as many big names as I can. So I went for stretch goals, man. I tried to get all the biggest people in health and spirituality and stuff. Okay, and I got a few big names starting out of the gate, which helped. But then I started reaching out to all the brands for all the products I use. There's my Clear Light sauna behind me. I have a cupboard full of, at any given time, probably 100 supplements that are really high quality, and I've vetted them. I know all the best stuff. It's like, maybe it's my drug pass. I find the best dealer in town. I know who makes the best vitamin K2. I know who makes the best sauna, the best this, the best that. And I pride myself in vetting and researching and finding the best people.
Right.
So I started reaching out to the brands that I'm a consumer of and saying, hey, I want to do affiliate deal with you. So I'd sign up as an affiliate with all those brands, like Bulletproof Coffee, for example. They were one of the first ads that I ran. So there was a multifaceted strategy there. I wanted the audience to get indoctrinated into me having ads at the beginning of the show from the beginning. I didn't want to spring it on them after they're addicted to the show after the first year and think like, oh, now he's getting greedy.
Right.
I'm like, no, dude, there's ads on my show. I'm doing this shit for free. Also, it made my show sound more legitimate if I was and today's episode is brought to you by Bulletproof Coffee.
It really
and my shows have been up for humble them advertiser. I didn't.
Interesting.
I ran their ad for free. Does the brand give a shit that I'm giving them free advertising? No, they love it.
Right.
But I made a little money. It was a weak monetization, but it was a beginning. So if somebody bought some Bulletproof Coffee, I'd make $20 or something, right?
Yeah.
As the audience grew, the affiliate commissions that I get from those brands started to go up. And even now, I get PayPals. I'm like, I just made $800. Sick. That used to be $8.
Wow.
A couple of years ago. You know what I mean? And I'm like, wow, give me a couple more years, that'll be $8,000.
Do you ever are you at a point now where do you ever get approached by sponsorship deals or advertisers that are not in alignment with your purpose that you're serving? I don't know.
Well, I'm really excited because next week I'm taking on McDonald's and Coca-Cola as advertisers because they're going to pay me enough.
Yeah, it would all be over.
I think because my subject matter is so niche and my lane is narrow in a sense because I'm not talking about sports or politics or how to make a go-kart or whatever.
Right.
I don't know where that came from. I'm very much focused on health and spirituality. So the brands that have approached me have been in alignment so far. There was one, and that's my newest advertiser that just cold called me, called Health IQ, and they're a life insurance company.
Oh,
and I was
I've heard of them.
Yeah, but I was like, I don't know. That sounds kind of corporate and weird. I'm usually advertising, supplements or health devices or something. But I got on a call with one of their chiefs, and he explained what they do. And the way it works is they're a broker or an agency, and they shop around for a life insurance policy for you. But what's sick is, and what's in alignment with my brand, is you get like up to a 58% discount on your life insurance if you're super healthy.
Yes.
So you can send them like your gym membership, your Fitbit statistics of how much you jog. If you're like a vegan, it's cheaper. It's really cool. So it actually incentivizes the customer to take better care of themselves, because it's less of a burden on the company issuing the insurance, because you're less likely to die, right?
Right. It's brilliant.
So I was like, that's actually a business model that I really want to support. So even though it was very kind of corporate and medically, I was for a second like, I don't know if this is going to fit. But once I talked to them and found out, but that was probably the most left field. I was just approached yesterday by a company who does really high quality organic textiles, and they make these like beyond organic sheets and bedding and things like that. I was like, oh, that's sick. That's something to be really useful. I want them, you know. That's hard to find really good bedding that's truly organic. A lot of the organic labeling is very dubious.
Yes.
So they sent me their whole spiel. I was like, cool. And I think I have a call with them tomorrow to see if, you know, it works. But just by looking at their site, I'm like, yeah, that's a perfect match. And the audience is going to be stoked, because those are the type of things that people don't want to spend the time and energy to vet themselves. Like, I'm the only geek that wants to sit there and like research every natural bedding website and like look for their certifications and like go deep there. So yeah, so far, but there will come a time where someone's like, hey, you know, we want you to run ads on your show for this thing that I don't really believe in or isn't healthy, or if there's some lack of integrity there, then there's no way I could do that, because I'm not trying to be like Mr. I mean, it sounds like self-righteous or something, but I literally just couldn't live with myself to do that. I just have been working on my own integrity for too long to just take money for something that doesn't align with me inside. But the other piece of like when the business turned to become more profitable, to your original question, is about 6 months in, I had been running these free ads that no one knew were free. And then I started reaching out to some of the brands that I had run free ads for and been like, hey, I've been running these ads for free. How are sales looking? And they're like, dude, shit, you actually convert. Yeah, and so they could see my conversions, because my audience is very, as we say in the industry, very compliant. You know, you have like people that are popular on social media, and then you have people that are influencers, right? Being popular and having influence are different things. Turns out, for whatever reason, based on my delivery and personality and enthusiasm and expertise in some cases, my audience is very compliant, and I'm very influential. When I say like, I found the best thing, buy it, they buy it.
I believe you. I've bought like a handful of supplements that you've mentioned. I have a Juve red light in my, in my
you
apartment.
Got the Juve?
I have it.
Oh, dude, I love. Doesn't it feel good?
It's awesome. Yeah,
it's amazing. It's so good for your skin too.
Yes.
That's why I always tell women, they're like, I don't want testosterone. I'm like, you do need higher testosterone in most cases.
For the total superficial reasons. I'm like, give it to me.
Oh, it's really good for your skin. It literally, there's all these white papers on how it removes wrinkles, it heals scars, it heals acne, it prevents acne. It's insane.
Yeah, I think it also helps with like female hormonal stuff too, because I've had a lot of thyroid issues that I think it's helping with as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. Red light therapy is absolutely scientifically vetted up and down. Like, you cannot disprove its efficacy. It's just absolutely 100% legit. And out of all the devices that I've explored, Juve is the best and also the most affordable. Some of those devices are like $150,000.
Oh, I mean,
really? Oh yeah, there's one that's a whole like tanning bed. They have it at Bulletproof Labs, and it's 150 grand.
Oh.
It's awesome, but like, you know,
who's gonna spend that? Yeah,
I'm not there yet. So that was all really phase one, was establishing as many affiliate relationships as I could, even though they didn't really become meaningful until after a while, and then running free ads, then converting those ads into paid ads, and then the next phase in terms of monetization was to roll out a coaching program where I work with people one-on-one, which I've been doing for a long time anyway. I just never talked about it. Yeah.
Okay.
And so that still is a means to an end. I mean, honestly, right now I have probably 15 emails in my coaching email folder that I open them, I'm like, and I just run and never answer them. I'm just like, I didn't see that. And I put my head back in the sand, because I can't take anything on right now.
It's a
So
lot, yeah.
I knew that it wasn't scalable and really sustainable to do the coaching,
Yeah.
but it helps support the other things that I'm doing. And so
Right.
I'm still in kind of phase 2 there, and coaching is part of that. And then another part of phase 2 is speaking at as many events as I can, being on other podcasts,
Yes.
sharing my expertise as an individual, in addition to highlighting other people that are guests on my show. So last year, I think I did like 15 speaking engagements, and I multi-purpose those and turned most of them into a podcast episode where I just talk, which is
Yeah.
a great way for my audience to get to know my perspective more. And then I have my first online class coming out this summer, which is kind of moving into more phase 3, where there's paid online communities and online courses and doing paid retreats and things like that, which I'll
For
get
the
into
Life
kind of
Stylist
later
podcast?
this year. What's that?
For the Life Stylist podcast, you're doing classes?
It's just like Luke Storey presents.
Oh,
So
cool.
the first class that I'm going to be presenting is just going to be it'll be like $97, but
Yeah.
crazy value
Yeah.
added. Like, it's going to be $1,000 class that's $100 basically.
Yeah.
But it's I got a site called biohackmytravel.com,
Okay.
and there's nothing on there yet, but that's where the online course will live. And it's a course that teaches every single thing I've ever learned to minimize the negative effects of air travel, car
Awesome.
travel, hotel travel. Because I love to travel, but it just wrecks me. So
Yeah,
for the past
yeah.
20 years, I've been adding all of these different devices and supplements and practices to my protocol, and I've
Yeah.
put all of it into this crazy online course. So I'll see how that one goes, and if people respond, which I think they will, then I'll start
think they
making
will.
more of those and do things that are more scalable, because I find with the coaching, it's fun and it's rewarding to really help someone move through blocks
Right.
on different levels, metaphysically and physically, but you can still only help one person at a time. And it's like, I know I have more to offer than just getting on a Skype with someone once a week and kind of
Right.
guiding them through a period in their life. I'd like to be able to do that for 10,000 people at once,
Yeah.
So,
I think you could.
and also the retreats of like going somewhere really
Yeah.
special, like Bali or Costa Rica or Hawaii or wherever, and having a full immersion for a couple of weeks where I take people and sequester them from their phones and their lives and
Yeah.
teach them the ultimate lifestyle in person, where they get to do it more experientially.
Very cool.
So that's kind of what's going on with that.
Yeah, not too much, right? You've got a packed schedule.
Oh my God, yeah.
So shifting gears here a little bit.
Sure.
Can you tell me a bit about, like, what is the biggest failure or mistake that you've made in your life that at the time was like so devastating to you that today you can look back at and say, oh, it was like a really amazing growing experience or a really amazing learning experience?
Oh my God, let me count the ways.
I feel like you're gonna have a really good one.
Oh man, you know what's funny? I have made a practice out of not really energizing thoughts that they regret, beating myself up and kicking myself in the
Right.
ass because I should have done that. Like, I try not to should myself,
Right.
as they say, should myself. One of my regrets, honestly, is not taking better care of my teeth. I know that sounds crazy,
Your teeth.
but your teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, these things right here. I was told I was supposed to wear a night guard, and I thought they were just trying to scam me at the Korean freaking, like just little ghetto dentist I went to and down the street on Wilshire.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you need night guard. You're grinding your teeth. $700. I was like, psh, $700. I'm not getting that shit.
Oh no.
Then I went years, and a bunch of my teeth decayed from all the drug use and stuff. And then I ended
Oh,
up just
wow.
having so much expensive, painful dental work done. I just had a $5,000 zirconian implant put in. It was brutal, like the whole thing. And
Yeah.
the dentist, when I was getting the implant, he showed me like with the mirror the inside of your mouth, and I was like, oh my God,
why?
I'm like, I have no teeth left. They're all just porcelain inlays and fake made up. I mean, my front teeth are like real, but they're yellow and chipped, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things your parents tell, like, oh, take care of your teeth, you don't get new ones. I was like, eh.
And then you never do. Yeah.
So that was a mistake. I mean, if I could go back, I would have not let things get to the point of a root canal and like really
Right.
made dentist visits a more regular part of my life. That's a more superficial mistake, I guess, a regret.
Yeah. What about in terms of your
let me-
business? Like, was there anything that you regretted?
You know what has been difficult with me in business It's not like a single event kind of mistake, but it took me a long time to really get clear about my numbers and to have clarity about how much money's going out, what it's going out for, how much money's coming in, having really solid record keeping, paperwork, organization, Dropbox folders, scanning receipts, having everything there. And really having competent bookkeepers and accountants and just having all of that stuff on lock, taxes, really being tight with all that stuff. That's been something that has been difficult to learn and put into practice. I'm really good with it now. I'm super, super organized in that regard. But along with that, when I was a stylist, this is actually, so there's that, which is just more of the clarity and having systems for finances and all that. But I think, I do have another regret, even more meaningful than jacking my teeth, is my relationship to debt and credit. I really hurt myself really bad. In fact, last night I just added up the credit card debt that I still have left. A couple years ago, I found myself like around $80,000 in credit card debt, and I'm paying $1,000 a month in interest, just literally taking $10 $100 bills at the first of every month and throwing them in an incinerator.
And this you racked up during what period of time?
Well, here's what happened. I just was very compulsive, like addictive kind of shopper. I'm just like, cool, I'm going to Barney's to buy a freaking $3,000 leather jacket. Literally, I don't have the money, but I used to. This is how I perceived a line of credit, is that, say you have $50,000 in available credit on your cards. The way my mind used to conceptualize that was that I literally have $50,000 liquid cash.
Oh, God.
Not a line of credit. I mean, I was like, I have that money. That's my money. No, Bank of America has that money. Chase has that money, and they're going to loan it to me, and then by my own volition, rape me for exorbitant interest rates from 18 to 27% or something after I borrow that money. I didn't get that concept for a long time, and I didn't have the discipline to restrain myself if I wanted to take a trip or I wanted to buy something. I was like, oh, how much credit do I have on my credit card? I'm like, I can afford it. And that was my mentality. And so I got buried, and then it got so deep that I couldn't get out, and then I felt really ashamed about it. And then I would buy something I couldn't afford, and I kind of knew it because I started to become aware of it. Then because I felt ashamed, then I would go buy something to feel better about feeling ashamed because I bought something that I couldn't afford. This vicious cycle of like just debting and kind of compulsive spending and stuff. Another sort of manifestation of the addictive personality kind of thing. And another way that I really got into that habit, and where there was a lot of confusion and vagueness around money and numbers, is when I was a stylist. Well, this is the way it works. When you are a stylist and you're given a budget for a job, you're giving your day rate, right? So you make $1,000, $2,000 a day or whatever, right? And that's your rate, and that's all fine. Then you're given a budget. Maybe for a music video, the budget, say $10,000. The way that it works in our industry is you have to have a really fat line of credit, like maybe $150,000, $200,000 on your credit cards, right? And then you go out and you buy all this stuff at the stores, and then you take it to the job. The client keeps whatever the client keeps or uses on that gig. Then you go return everything, and it's credited. All your returns go back on your credit cards. Then you turn in an invoice and all your receipts to the client, and they reimburse you.
Interesting.
So you, as a stylist, by default, you act as a financier for every job that you do, and then you get paid back, which is all fine if you have the credit. But here's where it can get tricky if you're not paying attention. And this is how I initially got in that hole, is say I would go do a job and the budget's $10,000. I spend that money. I turn in my receipts. The client reimburses me. They give me a check for $10,000, and I put that in my checking account. And then I kind of forget that that money is not my $10,000. That's $10,000 that I owe to my credit card. And then that happens a few times over the course of a couple of years. And next thing you know, like I got $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 sitting in my checking account. And a friend's like, hey, dude, I'm taking a trip to Brazil for 2 weeks. You want to go? First class, let's roll. I'm like, yeah, I got the money. No, I don't have the money. In reality, I have borrowed money that now is at 18%, 27% interest, and I'm unaware of that. And then so I go spend that cash that I've been reimbursed with, and so enters this cycle of a lot of my styling career. Which, I'm glad I took those arrows, because that's one of the things we really teach our students at School of Style is like, yo, man, you better really wake up to the fact that you have a lot of liability there, and it's a very slippery slope when you start dealing with a lot of money like that, too. You're getting huge checks, reimbursement checks, and checks for your rate, and sometimes there's periods where you make a ton of money, and so you think, oh, I make X amount of dollars a year now, but that's only for that year. The next year things slow down, and you kind of tank, and living above my means. So I'd say in my adult life, aside from my teeth, which is more of a superficial sort of choke, is really being irresponsible with money and debt and spending and things like that. Now, fast forward to having identified that issue, I literally record every penny that I spend every single day. Every penny.
Wow.
I save every single receipt. I have 4 Dropbox folders. If it's a personal,
holy crap.
If it's a personal income, business income, personal expense, business, all my credit cards are separate. I cut up all my credit cards except for my 2 business cards because I get miles on those. I only buy things cash. I only use my debit card. I do not buy anything unless I have the money. If somebody wants me to take a trip, I check my checking account. If I have liquid cash money to pay for the entire trip to travel in the way that I want to travel, which can be high maintenance, then I don't go. I save up the money.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so at 47 years old, I'm finally learned how to operate financially as an adult, and it feels really good. I have a lot more emotional and mental balance, and I'm less shamey and weird about that. And I talk about it openly when the situation is appropriate, as it is now. And I think it can be really helpful to other people that are kind of doing that stuff, because I'm the one I really screwed up my life. I mean, I wouldn't even want to know how much interest I've paid on credit cards. Like, it would be too depressing to know. I mean, it's $1,000 a month for years. So add that up. It's not, it doesn't feel very good. But that's what motivates me to change my behavior and really get, become more aware and responsible. And it's a lot more emotionally balanced feeling to really have an awareness of where I am with all of that, and to have a very supportive team that's like keeping all the numbers where they should be, and having a great CPA, and being strategic about taxes and things like that. So it feels good to finally be learning it, but man, it took me a while.
Well, congrats on making a huge comeback financially.
Thank you.
I want to be mindful of your time. Do you have a hard stop, or can I ask you?
No, I'm good. I'm chilling.
Okay, cool.
We have some people on Instagram hanging out with us over here. It's
nice.
fun. Yeah. I always put the camera, the phone sideways though, because you can get more in the frame. So I can never, I can never see the comments. But it's your show, so the comments don't matter.
Okay, cool.
I know you have an extensive ritual of, morning ritual of all your biohacking devices and supplements and this and that. What would you say are your favorite 3?
Well, I just interviewed a gentleman named Light Hopkins, who's a veteran meditation teacher, and we were talking about Vedic meditation, which is the style of meditation that I practice. And absolutely my number one non-negotiable is meditation. I do that twice a day. In fact, I was thinking about my time. I just looked at the clock at 6 o'clock. I'm like, only thing I have committed to is my second meditation.
Yeah.
So that's the number one. I recommend that. It's free. That's the ultimate biohack, and I get a lot of emails from people that are like, and it's not like I'm an even exceptionally wealthy guy. I mean, I do okay. I wouldn't consider myself by any stretch rich at this point, although I will be soon. And I'm very pleased to announce that. But I'd be happy whether or not I was rich or not, because I've been poor as hell and really happy. But people will write in and be like, oh, that's cool for you. Like, you get all these devices for free, or you get a discount, or you can afford them or whatever. Yeah. How can someone improve their health and well-being for cheap? And I'm like, dude, meditate. Meditation is the most free and most powerful thing that you can do to benefit your life. So I literally meditate every single morning without fail for at least 20 minutes, usually about 20 to 30 minutes, with the exception of days where I'm going to my 9 o'clock Kundalini yoga class. Those days I'll wake up, I'll sit there for maybe 5 minutes and, just kind of get grounded. And then I drive over there, but that's an hour and a half of really deep meditation and breath work and things like that. Yeah. So those are the only days that I feel like I don't need to be redundant and kind of stack those. Although if I get up early enough, I'll meditate for 20 minutes, and then I'll go to an hour and a half Kundalini class and do more prayer and meditation and singing and chanting and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So meditation, number one. I would say number two, and I'm going to throw in one that is not cheap or free. It's $7,500. And that's a device called the Amp Coil, which is
I need one of those.
I mean, it's like, I feel like I have a freaking Ferrari in the garage, and I've only just like turned the key on, just revved it up a couple times. It's got a lot of potential in terms of the different things that you can use it for.
Very cool.
But the Amp Coil is a combination of what's called biofeedback and PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic field. So essentially, it sends sound and vibration frequencies into your body through a magnetic coil. That's a really great delivery system to get things deep into your cells. And the frequencies do different things, from nourishing organs to balancing your chakras and your energetic system, to cleansing pathogens and metals and things like that. So it's like a cleansing device, a nourishing device, and also a very transformative consciousness device because of what it does to the nervous system and your brain waves. So I stack the Amp Coil sessions on my meditation also. So there's one free one. Well, I guess if you really want to learn to meditate, you probably would pay a teacher. Yeah. I think that's best, but it's minimal, not. Yeah. But it's not a reoccurring payment. Right. You learn once and then you're done. You have your practice for life. And then the Amp Coil, and maybe I could give another one. I mean, honestly, this is kind of like superficial, but drinking a bulletproof coffee after meditation, there's an asterisk there. After meditation, don't drink caffeine and then try to meditate. It's not going to happen.
Right.
So you have to wait until after. But when I started on bulletproof coffee, and everyone, my friends make fun of me because I've been the poster child of bulletproof and have done a lot of work with them and stuff. But when Dave Asprey kind of invented the idea / got the idea from these mountain people in the Himalayas that make yak butter tea, which is essentially like a hot herbal drink with really good healthy fats in it. He saw that they had this sustained energy, and he thought, aha, maybe I could get healthy fats into coffee and make a delicious coffee that gives you this amazing sustained energy and all these healthy fats.
Right.
When I got on that coffee, which was like, I guess, probably 6 years ago or something like that, my whole health just totally changed, and I stopped craving carbohydrates and I stopped craving sugar, and it just made me kind of by default ketogenic, which, I don't know if your listeners will know what that is, but you become a fat burning biological system rather than burning sugar or glucose from eating carbs and fruit and, grains and bread and all that kind of stuff. So I pretty much stopped eating gluten. I cut down on sugar. I lost a bunch of weight. I had this crazy energy all day. So whether or not one would drink a bulletproof coffee per se, or just a really great herbal elixir or hot drink, the point is you want something medicinal, which caffeine and the coffee bean is medicinal, or some kind of herb or mushroom, but combining that with the healthy fats like the brain octane oil, which is a derivative of coconut oil. It's a certain type of MCT. Drinking like an MCT or coconut or ghee or grass-fed butter, like hot drink in the morning, is one of the biggest things you can do for your energy, and it's relatively inexpensive. I mean, I put so many people on just one cup of bulletproof coffee in the morning. A month goes by and they're like, dude, this changed my life. I mean, it's weird, but it really does, because it gives you such mental power and physical energy, and it lasts for a really long time, and you don't get that like
the crash,
weird anxiety and the crash and the mood swings that a lot of people get from coffee. They think that they can't drink coffee and caffeine, but it's just because they're drinking swag coffee, and it's not mixed with fat, so it's so jarring to your system. When you I would never drink a black coffee unless I'm really, really tired, or maybe after dinner I might have an espresso or something like that. But when I see people like getting one of those big gulp iced coffees from Starbucks, I'm like, oh my god, I would like be homicidal. I would lose my shit if I drank one of those.
Oh my god,
so much caffeine, and when there's no fat in it, it just absorbs right into your bloodstream, and it's like shooting up caffeine. So I would not advise drinking coffee black, and definitely coffee that's not organic, that could have mold and things like that. But the meditation, the Amp Coil, the bulletproof coffee, if I had to pick three that I wouldn't give up, that would probably be them.
Awesome. I have two more questions for you.
Cool.
One.
This is fun, by the way. I'm having a great time.
Are you liking it? Okay, good.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's
yeah,
also
I love
really
it.
great to hear you as your business insider tips here. It's really cool.
I love talking about it because
Good.
I have a lot of experience I've had a very wide range of experience in my life.
Really
from
have. I've noticed
from
that.
the dark to the light, and I've amassed a lot of experience and knowledge, and so
Yeah.
I love to share things that I don't get a chance to talk about. And
Oh,
especially
awesome.
since I'm usually the host, I work really hard to restrain myself and not step on the guest, even though sometimes I do, because it's hard not to. So when I'm on someone else's show, I'm like, oh my God, finally I get to talk
Let it out.
unbridled, and just cut
Yeah.
loose. So it's fun. I
Let it
appreciate
loose. How do you measure success, and do you consider yourself successful today?
Oh, that's a great question. I think for me, success is, it's relevant to and contingent on how much I'm able to love and accept myself. That's how I gauge my own success, is like when I look in the mirror, how much shame is still there.
Yeah.
How much self-loathing and all of that nastiness is still present. The more that I can overcome that, the more successful I feel inside. So success is not so much for me about what's accomplished and manifest externally, but it's about not even about what I do, like, oh, I do this cool podcast or I run this cool fashion school. It's more about who I am.
Yeah.
And who I'm becoming, the man that I'm becoming, and that I have integrity, that I am who I say I am, and that I'm real,
Yeah.
And I always say, like, I'd much rather be respected than liked. I don't really care if people like me
all the time.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just some feedback that I get a lot, which makes me feel successful, is people say, "Man, I love your delivery because it's so real. You're so authentic." And
Yeah.
I get that specific feedback so often, and that's such a high compliment. I mean, it warms my heart to hear that, because I think the most unattractive thing, no, not the most, I mean, maybe like just being hateful and violent and all of that is probably the most unattractive human trait. But one of the things that I really am turned off by is when people are really phony.
Right.
That's why I have like a really hard time with most politicians, is they're just such liars and they're so fake.
Yeah.
They're just like, you're so full of shit. And newscasters and just the media and just, living in Hollywood, there's so much facade.
Yeah.
So I think when I'm just able to care about myself and respect and love myself enough to be authentic and real and vulnerable, that feels successful to me, because I'm becoming someone that I'm able to really accept, and I acknowledge my faults and weaknesses to myself and outwardly to others, but I also appreciate the talents that I have, the skills that I have, and the things that I've been able to overcome in my life.
I always say, if you go for respect, all the right people will end up loving you anyways. And if you go for love, you won't get respect from anyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you try to make everyone love you, no one's going to respect you anyways.
Yeah, and I've struggled a lot in my life with just being addicted to approval and wanting to be popular and to be liked and to be accepted and all of that stuff. And I used to be such a people pleaser and a doormat in so many ways, and just going along with things that I want to used a lot when I was younger, and it's just like, I'm not having that anymore. I know who I am and how I want to spend my time and the people with whom I want to spend it. And so the more I can really just be true to myself and kind of have a hard line there, I think I feel more accomplished. But then the funny thing is the more I'm grounded in that state of being, the more success I have on the outside with business and financial things like that. It's like things just sort of start to come my way and happen without much effort. Yeah, it's sort of like there really is such a correlation between, how much outer success and material success I really feel at the core that I deserve, and the more that I feel like I deserve that, not in an entitled way, but it's earned deserving, not an entitled deserving, that the more shows up, because the universe is like, oh, really? You think you're the shit? All right, we're going to pay you like you're the shit. And it's true. I mean, like I said, I get random PayPals. I'm like, wow, I just made a nice chunk of money. I really don't even remember what it was for. Just, another check came. I'm doing this thing lately, too, just as an exercise where, because I've really struggled with poverty thinking and limited thinking, and really trying to move toward a more abundant material mindset. I'm working really hard at it. One of the things I do is throughout the day, I just kind of visualize like more of those PayPal emails coming in, just like ding, 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 ding. There's just like money flying in from all directions all the time. And it's kind of actually working.
I bet you it would work. I promise you it'll work.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting to watch that. Yeah, I'm like, wow, I used to talk about like, oh, you need multiple streams of income and stuff. I'm like, whoa, I actually have that. I mean, of course, I want to turn up the volume on that, but it's a good start right now.
Awesome. What is a valuable piece of advice that you would give to other entrepreneurs that are starting their businesses with a conscious intention like yours?
Well, the intention is everything. You know, it's like, I think in any endeavor, whether it be entrepreneurial, business, or otherwise, even entering into any kind of a relationship, be it romantic, friendship, business, whatever, is the intention is everything. And that's going to determine not only the outcome of success, but the outcome of inner fulfillment and reward for that venture. In other words, if I'm entering into a situation because I want to get something out of it, I'm going to lose. Because the inherent quality of selfishness can never be satisfied. No matter what milestone you get to, you feel like you've never arrived because that selfish, insecure, rapacious kind of taker energy is present.
Right.
So the number one thing would be setting the intention as I want to contribute as much value as possible in any given situation. And that also means that I want to receive value and compensation out of it too. Like when I started my podcast, it wasn't like, cool, I think I'll drop $3,000 a month just so everyone has a nice podcast to listen to.
Right.
Like I'm not that nice of a guy. You know what I'm saying? I know mine's coming, but my first intention was like, I know a lot of cool stuff that's very powerful if you apply it to your life, and I think I can reach people in a way that's unique because I can reach the geeky biohackers that are into the science and all that stuff, and I can find the PhD neurologists that are going to teach them, and I can take the woo-woo like crazy UFO people and kind of reel them in to make them relatable, and I saw that I had a skill to be able to do that, but my intention was to help all of those experts reach a bigger audience and to help the audience to get exposed to really powerful principles that can help their lives. And so because that intention of giving and contributing was at the root of it, the law of reciprocity has swung back around. And now I'm like, oh, cool. I just got a really weird, great mystery PayPal, you know?
Right.
So
Awesome.
That would be my advice, is like setting the intention on contributing and giving. But also in addition to that, and this is really a big one that I've had to teach so many School of Style students, is that and it's so corny, you know, it's like probably every entrepreneur seminar or speaker says something to this effect, but the paralysis of analysis will kill you. You just have to do it. It's like doing it, whatever it is, launching your thing and doing it wrong is a million times more successful than waiting and planning and planning and planning and then doing it right. Because no matter how long you wait and plan to launch your venture, it's going to come out sloppy anyway.
Yeah,
so why don't you just start now and just be hella sloppy and just totally suck? Right. But at least you're someone who's doing it and sucking instead of someone who's talking about it, planning about it, trying to be a perfectionist at something. And I really learned that with School of Style. It's like I sat on it for about 6 months and I had a lot of doubt, and finally I was like, whatever, dude, I'm just going to put an ad on Craigslist. And I started taking people's money. My class was $280. And like I said, I think, 10, 12 people signed up, and I took that money and spent it because I had bills due, you know. And then I was like, oh, snap, now I have to actually do the class. And that motivated me to make the PowerPoint and get the location and make my little workbooks and come up with the curriculum. So it's the principle, I think you could summarize as the principle of fire, aim, ready is how you do it. Not ready, aim, fire. Don't get ready. You don't have to be ready. Just jump off the cliff and then figure out how to work the parachute.
That's one that I'm working on myself right now, so that's a good one.
Yeah, and the universe will catch you. And you know what? If it doesn't catch you and you fall on your ass, then that's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Right. That's exactly
right.
I
want to make online classes and be a life coach. Oh, cool. Well, so does everyone else. So you're like, I don't know. Is it going to work? It might not work.
Yeah.
So what? Then you're one step closer to getting to be, the owner of an art gallery or whatever it was that is your higher calling, where you can really use your skills and talents in the best way. I mean, I thought I was going to be a musician, and I'm an okay musician, but I'm not dedicated enough to it to become exceptional, so I stopped. Yeah. I play on Instagram Live, you know. I sit there and like play for 45 people, and it's like, that's my little gig. It's good enough. I get to.
You're pretty good.
Well, thanks, but I get to still express that creativity and share it with other people, you know, if I have a little bit of a gift there. But I had to try that for 15 years, and eventually I was like, yeah, okay, I guess this isn't really happening for me. I'm not going to buy a house playing bass. It's not going to take me where I want to go in terms of my end goals of, you know, having a family and some security and living in a place that's comfortable and looks nice and, you know, all the things that I desire.
Great. Beautiful words of wisdom from Luke Storey. That was awesome. Do you have anything else you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask you?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot, you know, in the context of your goal and, you know, the position of what you're doing. I think there's a lot of stuff there. I don't feel like I left anything out. We covered some of the physical stuff and some of the metaphysical. And I really, as I said, I love talking about the business piece because I'm still in business. I didn't go to college or business school, as I said. So like life is my business school every day. I try something and it doesn't work and I abandon that and start something new. So it's really fun for me to be able to talk about that because it helps me sort of put the progress I've made into perspective. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. I've actually accomplished some cool stuff. It helps give me the confidence to keep going and get on to the next thing that I might be a little reticent in launching or starting, you know? Yeah. So it's been great for me. It's been very therapeutic.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear. Yeah. And what's your astrological sign?
I'm a double Scorpio. I was born at 7:30 a.m. on October 29th, 1970 in St. Anthony's Hospital in Denver, Colorado. So I have Moon in Libra, Sun sign Scorpio, and Rising sign Scorpio.
I would have totally guessed you were a Gemini rising.
Really?
Yeah, because you're so communicative. Like, you're totally...
Interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if your time's maybe a little off. You radiate... There's definitely some Gemini going on.
Interesting. I have to find my birth certificate. I always ask my mom, like, when was I born? She says, I think it was 7:30. But my mom's really into it. She did my charts when I was a kid and stuff like that. But she was, like, terrified because... there was like some chance I could have been a triple Scorpio or something. They were like, I hope he's not premature or he's going to be the devil, you know. And then I came out a double Scorpio, and my grandmother, her mom was named Viola. God rest her soul. She was such a sweetie. And they were both just terrified I was going to be this one combination of signs or whatever. And then when it was a double Scorpio, they were still terrified. And you know what? I got to say, they were right, because I was a handful. I'm like, I wouldn't raise me. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I was a sweet kid, but I was freaking wild, man.
Well, we all have to go through some stuff, right? I call it the slingshot effect. I mean, you're a great example of that. Sometimes life just pulls you so far in one direction so you can catapult, you know, to where you're supposed to be. So,
right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this. This is really, really awesome.
All right. Thank you so much. Really good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you.